So thanks for coming over to the Sustainability Hub of the Food Ingredients Europe. It's quite exciting to be here. My name is Sanne Stroosnijder. It's a terrible name to announce, so don't worry. I work at Wageningen University and Research. It's #1 agri-food university based in the Netherlands, and I'm a program manager there. And my work is dedicated to preventing losses and food waste and increasing our food resource use efficiency. And quite excited today, actually, to talk to you about some quite common myths that I come across in my work on a daily basis. I think over the last 5 years, I've talked to hundreds of companies, organizations, government representatives about food waste. And yeah, there's a lot there to discuss. And in these conversations, there are always specific topics that actually come back and that we have to discuss because they are generally considered to be true, but they are actually not. And in most cases, they are oversimplified and could be more nuanced. So that's what I'm going to do here today. Together with you, I'm going to bust the 10 most discussed myths about food waste and upcycling. Short disclaimer. Of course, this is highly opinionated by me, although I do take a lens through science, and I base a lot of my experience on the excellent research that a lot of my colleagues are conducting at Wageningen. They are in no specific order, and there might be a lot more myths to bust, and I would love to engage with you either during the presentation or afterwards to see if we can bust more or have a discussion about what I present here to you today. So about myth busting, I just put the definition on the slide. Those of you who are fans of the program, it has something to do with these guys with mustaches, but I will just be sharing some of the data and the evidence with you. Yeah, and excited to hear and to learn also from you what is relevant in your work. So the first one, and this is an exciting one. That's when I meet, for example, with a lot of retailers or food manufacturers, they say, yeah, I think food waste is, that's a thing. Yes, we know. It's gained a lot of momentum during the last decade, actually. But I have so many other topics to focus on. So I have to reduce my single-use plastics. I have to reduce my carbon footprint. I have to have more organic. And I have to do all this at the same time. So I don't think I can also work on food waste in my sustainability strategy. Maybe it's too much of a single topic issue. To be honest, you are doing the topic short. Regardless of the fact that it is the #1 solution to climate change mitigation, in addition to adopting a plant-based diet, it is massively impactful not only on reducing the number of the amount of natural resources that we use to produce our food, but it also aligns with many of the other sustainable development goals that we have set ourselves towards 2030, including safe water, including land use, land at sea, life at land, but also SDG 2, reducing hunger. So in addition to being massively impactful, you are actually not only wasting less natural resources, but you are reducing 8 to 10% of the humanly induced greenhouse gas emissions in total, which represents about 1/3 of the food being wasted throughout the world. In the Netherlands, it's about 1/4. But that's $1 trillion each year. So it's, in addition to working on people, planet, also quite interesting from a profit point of view. And I'm not even talking about the amount of water that is being used to produce this food that we do not eat, which is about a quarter of all the water used in agriculture. I'm not even talking about, again, about a quarter of all the fertilizers being wasted and the land size of China. So people, planet, profit, food waste, you can also have a sustainable positive impact on biodiversity, on freeing up land for rewilding efforts. That's all hidden behind that single topic of food waste. So please don't do it short. Think about it again. If you think, oh, I have so many topics to juggle, choose food waste. Then the second one. Once I have sort of convinced people that it might be an important topic to think about, then they start, I don't think we waste that much in our organization. Or I've even had somebody say, we don't waste anything. A lot of consumers also say that. And all of you are underestimating actually the amount of waste that you waste in your household. Don't worry, everybody does that, but we all waste. The tricky thing in a business operations is that many organizations don't really see how much they waste because it's quite hidden below the surface. Different departments or different teams in your organizations will have pieces of that puzzle within your the management systems. You'll have procurement, you'll have production quality managers, you will have people managing your waste, and all that data combined will actually give you an idea of how your food resource use efficiency is. But that's quite an effort for most companies to actually manage that, measure it once, have a good baseline, and then to monitor this continuously. There are very few companies that actually are doing this at the moment. It's worthwhile because these are the latest EU numbers. Food waste is occurring throughout the full food supply chain. And for example, for the EU 27 at the European Commission, as we speak, there is a legally binding targets proposal on the table, which will also mean that in addition to the people, planet, profit we talked about before, you will have additional incentives enforced by your government in future to reduce your food waste, which will also require you to report on this. And I'll come back to that later as well. Okay, we've established that it's actually not a single topic issue. We've established that everybody does waste and everybody can increase their resource use efficiency. Don't feel tempted to start rescuing food. I know, I've done it. I'm the one in yellow over there. That was during COVID. 2020, we had a lockdown of all the restaurants sector. We produce in the Netherlands a lot of potato for our potato manufacturing industry. And we had 1.5 million tons of potatoes left, basically, that couldn't go into the supply chain. There were no customers, and about 2/3 of that were going to waste, basically. We ran a really interesting campaign together with Too Good To Go. We saved a teeny tiny bit of that potato mountain, which was really about creating awareness of what was happening due to disruptions in our supply chain. It didn't solve the problem of food waste. And the amount of disruptions of our supply chain will only increase in the future. We see examples of geopolitical disruptions, of course, with the ongoing war in Ukraine. But we will also see additional fluctuations of surplus due to the influence of climate change on the way we can produce food. We will have more extreme weather situations that will have an influence on the products that we can eat. So, although it is very noble and it's also actually very much engaging with consumers, it's great fun to do, it is not a structural solution to start saving a certain harvest of apples. I just read something in the paper this morning about a huge apple harvest in the US going to waste. We need structural, flexible, resilient supply chains to save food and not incidental actions that work a little bit for that moment. So that's really something we need to be aware of. There is one exception, actually, that you can, maybe on a Saturday night, if you want to enjoy. There's a great documentary currently on YouTube, the Farmlink story. It's called Abundance. It's a really positive, also Gen Z potential documentary you can see about how students in the US are actually organizing a structural solution to all these kind of rescuing activities. And they've saved a whole lot of food. So that's a really interesting one to see. Okay, so we talked about not a single topic. We've talked about that everybody wastes and that you shouldn't sort of get too over-enthusiastic by starting rescuing it. Let's talk about something else that's, maybe on a daily basis actually happening in discussions that I have on this topic. That is saying, but I do a lot of good things because I use all my waste streams for bioenergy. Sorry to say, you are at the low end of the food use hierarchy. I'm not against bioenergy. It's part of the thing that we need to do to become fossil-free. We also have an adjacent energy transition. We don't only have a food transition, but we need to significantly postpone the use of food waste streams for bioenergy because the conversion rate is terrible. That's why this food use hierarchy, which is actually laid down in EU legislation, is a reversed pyramid. The biggest impact we can deliver when we focus on prevention activities or redestination for food ingredients, animal feed, all still not food waste within the definitions of Europe. But anything that goes below the material transition towards energy, yes, we can do that, but only after we have done all the other things. This is actually really difficult at the moment because there is a lot of push. We have a green energy directive, we have a biomethane target set, and we actually now on a daily basis see large volumes of side streams that were actually destined for animal feed. We actually see them going into biodigesters at the moment. So we are actually, in terms of sustainability, running back at the moment. We're not going forward. If you have a company, if you have a biodigester, start asking what they put in it. Because this is really something that's a systematic error in our system at the moment. Another myth that I come across. Lots of you are working very hard on conducting LCAs for your ingredients. Great, keep on doing it, but please realize that's only a start. That's not the full homework. You're not done yet. I'm sorry. LCAs generally, typically focus on one part of the supply chain. I have a nice visual here. It's work that we published. You can just access this online. It's a hotspots analysis actually for global greenhouse gas emissions associated to food waste. But it also has actually a nice link to protein losses for those of you who are in the plant-based protein space. You can see that throughout the supply chain, for example, the greenhouse gas emissions related to waste differ for vegetables, focusing on the primary production all the way up to consumers. So depending on where you have waste within your supply chain, you need to find different solutions. And an LCA is probably calculated on a lot of generic data because we have a severe lack of primary data that actually will say something about your product, your transport modality, the way you have packaged or processed it, and the country of origin. So unless you have an enormous effort of improving your primary data, your LCA will say something, but very little, in my opinion, especially if you want to take action to improve the resource use efficiency within your supply chain. And if we are talking about moving towards net zero, then you really have to move beyond your LCA. If you want to learn more about this, I'd love to connect you to my colleagues who are much smarter at this than I am, but please move beyond your LCA. Another myth. It's a really interesting one. it's circular, so I must be doing something really good. Well, I have colleagues who actually say if it's biomass or bio-based, it's always circular. So that's sort of, it's a no-brainer. But circular is not per se sustainable. Again, it's about doing your homework. And if we look at actual objectification frameworks of what is circular, then you see that there are a whole lot of more indicators that you need to take into account. We actually should be talking about maybe one product or an ingredient is more circular or less circular, but there is no such thing as circular feed or a circular ingredient. And if you then start looking at how you can improve circularity while being sustainable, there's a whole lot of indicators to take into account. And some of them we have to estimate based on an expert opinion. Some of them we have validated by data. But you can do this exercise of objectifying the current application of your food resource compared to the future application, and then do your homework about whether your circular solution is actually more sustainable. And define also and specify based on which criteria of sustainable. Are we talking about improving the soil? Are we talking about sparing land? Are we talking about decreasing biodiversity loss? What are you actually talking about when we're talking about sustainability? So be more precise and take into account the actual composition of your side stream, the efficiency in conversion, the functionality of what you're actually using it for, in addition to whether it's actually being appreciated or not. And all these have to be taken into account. So again, quite a lot of homework. Looking at the time, I have to speed up. So we talk a lot about side streams, we talk a lot about upcycling, but nowadays I realize that I have to change my vocabulary as well, because this is all very linear still. If we have a primary application of our product and we consider the rest waste, we always have the rest of the rest of the rest. And I was really happy with the previous speaker that said, we tried these mushrooms, but we actually have quite a lot of waste now from the mushrooms. So we are reconsidering before we build that business, what are we going to do with the rest of the rest of the rest? Because otherwise you will tumble down somewhere in that reverse pyramid. So maybe we should design our waste, or maybe we should take a reverse engineering approach focusing on total use. And then maybe we should even appreciate a less efficient conversion in our primary application, taking into account how efficient we could be in our secondary or tertiary application. So that's also, again, doing your homework. Then about sourcing. I know everybody here is looking for what is the new side stream that I can source my new sustainable, upcycled, net zero ingredient from. This is a big scramble. There will be major shifts. And everybody's looking for something that is stable, quality, homogeneous, high volumes. Well, newsflash, if you have them now, be happy with it. In the future, you will probably not be able to buy them anymore. Thanks. So we need to downsize. We need to have our processing facilities more flexible, maybe even mobile. I heard it the previous speaker say, maybe closer to the farm. And there's a lot of promise in different type of milder processing technologies that can help improve quality. 2 more myths to go. Previous panel also touched upon how does the consumer relate to this. Well, fortunately, there is a growing knowledge base of research about how consumers actually appreciate upcycled food. And that's good news for your marketeers, because we can give them some starting points. What we need to do, and it's very clear, is that we need to stop talking about very abstract environmental benefits. We need to show much more concretely how a product that is circular or sustainable or upcycled actually looks like, because that will increase our self-rewarding, our feeling for self-reward, and that will increase our purchasing intention. So I have great research, both from the Netherlands, but also, for example, from Denmark, that showcase that consumers are positive about upcycled products or upcycled ingredients. But you have to get the climate narrative, and the climate narrative actually gives you a better positive reward than the health narrative. But it's all about purpose communication. So, yeah, make clear what you're actually aiming for. And then the last myth, and that's an interesting one, coming from a research organization, because of course, I would love to work with all of you on the solutions of the future. But I don't want to work with you on the solutions that we can already apply today. So please, stop piloting, take a leap of faith. It was mentioned by Corian in the panel. Start scaling. Towards 2030, we have significant challenges, but also significant opportunities. So mind your license to operate, not only for your procurement, for your suppliers, for your tendering, but also for your staff. Gen Z was already mentioned, attracting people that actually want to work for your company. But focus your R&D efforts on the pre-competitive challenges of the future. And that's really beyond 2030. That's where I want to work from our university with you guys. But today we need to start with what we already have. And don't forget about the consumers. That's my final remark. Maybe you have more myths to bust. Maybe you want to engage with me on things that you agree with or not agree with. As you can see, I'm quite limited in my mobility, so I will probably be hanging around here the rest of the day, and I'd love to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Sanne. Do we have any questions? We have time for a few questions from the audience. No. Well, I do have a question. Yeah, well, but I actually do have a question. Very interesting about the underestimation on our food waste, not just from an end consumer perspective, but also from companies and the industry itself. So what can we do to fill in that gap from an education to the industry that can be hopefully translated to the end consumer?
Yeah, I think here technology can really help us, and there's a lot of startups also that help us develop smart bins, smart weighing scales, image detection that can actually quantify how much you waste. These are solutions that are already operable in market. For example, in hospitality industry, there's a lot of sensing development that you can apply and implement in your factory. It's really about measuring, and we know that measuring and monitoring is actually already the first intervention. Most companies can reduce their waste and increase their food resource use efficiency by 20 to 30% just by starting to measure, because then they start to optimize. That's just what companies do.
And speaking of measurements, do you perceive circularity perhaps one day becoming quantifiable on the point that you were making about specifying where the circular and the positive impacts are coming from?
Yes, yeah, and it's actually also really important in light of substantiating your sustainability impact, which will become much more important with the new CSRD legislation coming in, with the Green Claims Directive. I mean, you need to collect this data anyway if you want to make a green claim in future. So, yeah, better start today. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we actually have a question over here.
Hello, my name is Katarina Rommi. I got interested about the circular evaluation network that you mentioned, or that was mentioned in on one of the slides. Can you tell a bit more about that and how to find more information?
Yeah, we call it the CAT tool, so a circularity assessment tool. And it's actually a framework to help you objectify what is more circular or less circular, because this is a very opinionated discussion. If you are in composting, of course, if that's your destination and you've built your business model there, then you are completely convinced that that is super, super sustainable. And if you argue that it's really good to have like whatever you can't harvest on the field because it's good for the soil, yeah. it's an argument that we hear a lot. It depends on whether it's good for the soil. You actually need to check what is good for the soil. It's probably not your leftovers from your harvest, but okay. And you need to just do your homework there. And it's a difficult discussion if you have a policymaker with certain objective, if you have a company with solutions, if you have researchers with data. So we need to move away from the opinions and the vested interests, and we need to objectify this discussion. But I can share the research with you. Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, thank you so much. And also just a reminder, you can connect with our speakers via the platform. And as Sanne mentioned, she will be around. So thank you so much again, Sanne. And our next panel is at 12:15.